Top 10 Opportunities for Christian Stewardship Services.
Actually, I'm going to talk about succession and transitions. A couple of years ago, CSS hired a new and improved executive director, and we're very happy about that. Some years before that, there's an irony here that when he started with CSS, one of the reasons that we hired him was that he had experience in dealing with succession planning in his former life. And so when I approached him on the taking over my position, one of his regrets was that he wasn't going to get to do that, and that maybe I was going to get to do that now, and I'm very thankful for that. So retirement is to take something out of service and it becomes unused. Transition is really about moving something or someone into a different role and allowing them to make a contribution, and I'm very grateful for having been given that opportunity. Transition and succession planning is really a new ministry for CSS, not that we didn't do it before. Then can you put the first slide up? Oh, okay. You're the expert. Actually, that's not the one, but you deal with it. No? Okay. All right. The slide that was supposed to be up there it talks about helping people be faithful stewards of their finances at various stages of their life so that they can support kingdom ministry. It was a slide, and this is sort of the second slide, that I've been using in doing presentations with regional groups of the Christian Farmers Federation of Ontario. They are one of our partners, and they have about 4,000 farm families as members in Ontario. In doing those presentations, I found that very few, a very low percentage, less than 25% of the people that I get to talk to have in fact got a succession plan in place for their farm operation. We're not only interested in dealing with farms, we're interested in dealing with businesses, and I'll talk to that a bit later, but CFFO is an interesting opportunity for us to start this, as they offer us as a service to their members. They're not a charity, and so they don't end up receiving any of the gifts that would come out of these succession plans. Other charitable organizations, Kingdom Work, would be the beneficiaries of that. Many farm families have accountants, have lawyers, have financial planners, but they don't have anyone to quarterback the process of the conversation about how do we think through the transition of our farm to the next generation. And so they don't know where to start, and so what we see is they don't. And the slide on the wall really talks about that. We encourage them to take control by taking the first step. All of them know that someday they will transition their business, whether they do that intentionally or unintentionally. So on the one side, you see involuntary. That could be death, disability, or some other circumstances that cause the transition of their farm. Or if they take control of the process, they can go down the right side, which is a voluntary process, a planning process that may involve transferring it to the next generation, or it may still involve a sale to a third party. So we walk through that with each family, and we produced, at the back you'll find a little brochure that CFFO and CSS produced to promote this within their membership. And then the other thing that we've done is also produce a video. And somebody's going to...
Every farm has a story. But how that story ends is dependent on the steps that you take while you're still able. The truth is, we're busy, and we'd rather not think about what could happen to us. We hope that if the worst were to happen, everything would fall perfectly into place. The reality is, the best hope for a successful transition is for us to create an integrated succession plan today. In our family, we were planning to create a farm legacy, but life kept interrupting us. I know you can relate. The scary thing is that we have waited too long to start our succession plan, and because of that, we almost lost the opportunity to control the transition. That's why this year we are taking the first step, the hardest step, to start our succession planning with our friends and CFFO partners, Christian Stewardship Services. Christian Stewardship Services understands that there's a vital need for this service in farm families across Ontario. But more importantly, they're willing to meet on our schedule, work with our existing advisors, and can provide a network of trusted professionals if needed. The initial meeting and assessment is free, and the resulting report will outline further steps on the process. Join us this year with other CFFO members by taking the first step to secure your family farm with your own succession plan. Together with Christian Stewardship Services, our farms will have a legacy built around our families and our terms. For us, that's how we want our story to go.
One of the things that we wanted to be able to do is provide a quality, timely service, and to do that, I took a 4-day course with an organization called BDO Dunwoody, who have developed a process called Success Care. And it's a full process of helping farm families or any business to work through the conversations, the issues, the technical details of creating a transition plan. The other thing that we did was we started to partner with a young man who is a CA, works for one of the BDO Dunwoody offices in sort of southwestern Ontario. And he's a tax specialist in their organization. And so by using Ian as part of our team, we know that when we're meeting with a farm family or a business situation, we're accessing good information. We, of course, will work with their own accountants, their own lawyers, any advisors that they wish to use. We're not trying to displace them, but many of those folks really aren't interested in doing this kind of work. And so Ian has a passion for this, as we do, and so we can bring expertise and professionalism to the process. A couple of stories. Why should you be interested in this? From a number of years ago, I sat down with a family that had a number of farms and probably an estate value of about $8.5 million. Their biggest challenge as part of the transition was, what do they do with the money? She was not interested in giving major amounts to their children, and he wasn't all that concerned about it. And through a series of meetings, we finally came to a place where they settled on that, and the end result of the process was about $5.5 million going to about 17 ministries as part of their letter of direction through CSS. They're happy, we're happy, and all of those 17 ministries that get the check eventually will be reasonably happy as well. Another situation, a small manufacturing outfit in Ontario were interested in doing a succession plan. They had a young employee who they felt could take over, and they wanted to transition out of it, and so we worked with them. It took 1.5 years or so before it eventually happened, and again, there is a significant bequest coming out of that process. How does this work? you folks have connections with many people and have all kinds of opportunities to ask them questions, get to know them, and it's a very simple question to ask. I was at the CFFO annual convention yesterday, and we had a booth set up, and I have a very scientific way of approaching this. I asked them if they have a farm. Well, it's a farm meeting, so that the answer tends to be yes. I asked them, do they have a succession plan or transition plan in place? And in almost all cases, there were 3 yesterday that said yes, they did. And all the people that walked past our table. And then it's a matter of giving them a brochure, chatting about what we are doing, and again, I walked away from the day with about 5 new families that I will need to follow up with to start having the conversation to move things forward. And in virtually every case, there will be a significant bequest. Whether it happens at the time of transition or whether it happens as part of their eventual estate plan, it'll be there. Had an opportunity, again, and it tends to often happen because they need to get their wills done or other documents in place. I had the opportunity a month and a half ago to meet with a young inventor, entrepreneur. It's a very fast-growing business. He places the value at $10 to $20 million, and he just wanted to have somebody other than the lawyer or the accountant to sit and have a look at the shareholders agreement and their family trust. And it was just a case of reading through it, asking some questions, and then he goes back to his other advisors and works that through. So, you have the opportunity to connect with these folks. And as the CFFO folks use us, you can use us as well to make that connection. Yesterday we got a phone call from someone I did some will planning with about 4 years ago, and they were just drafting a new will and said, we really need some help with succession planning. Can you help us with that? So that will happen early part of next year, the Lord willing. I want to sort of piggyback on something that Marina's talked about the RDAs. As part of my duties, I look after the investment portfolio of CSS and the investment committee, and that means I get to interact with people who want to borrow money from CSS. Early this year, I got an opportunity to visit a community in Northern Ontario in Emo. They're building a new Christian school, and in the conversation of talking through their financing, I mentioned the RDA that Marinas was talking about earlier. And they asked me, how does that work? And I explained it to them. And they said, could somebody, maybe you, come to our town and tell the people about the RDAs, because we think there are a significant number of people in our community who could put a lot of money in our RDAs. We think we could have $1 million go in. So we're there in April, and yesterday Jill mentioned that there's about $500,000 to date that has gone into RDAs from that community, with the earnings going to the school. So if they hit their target of $1 million, that will give them a cash flow of $40,000 a year to help pay for the mortgage that we lend them. The two are not connected, and we're very careful not to make that connection. They didn't get it because of that, but it is an opportunity for them to, for people who don't want to give their money yet, but are willing to let them use the money. It's a great opportunity.
CSS can help. Call 1-800-267-8890 or visit us online at csservices.ca. Thank you.